Hey there, Ninjarama here with another virtual production video using Unreal Engine. This new video is the result of someone asking me a question about whether a single NDI source can be sliced up or chopped up into multiple other textures to populate an LED panel or an LED wall. I don't know much about LED panels or LED walls, but I do know a little bit about texturing a 3D object, so I still wanted to help answer the question about the NDI video texture. My thought was that if it is possible to use a single UV texture map to texture multiple parts of a mesh, then hypothetically there is a way to do the same thing with a video texture. But how? Stick around and I'm going to show you a proof of concept that I hope will help you gain some ideas on implementing this technique for your own project, whether it's an LED panel or some other creative use that you might have. Let's dig in. Let's take a look at Premiere here, and I have 6 videos and they are set up in a sequence that has 3840 by 3240, so almost a perfect square. And what I've done is for each of these video objects I've moved the anchor point to 0, 0 because by default the anchor point is right here in the middle. And so if I move it to the upper corner, it makes it easier for me to align these videos perfectly where they need to be. Okay, so if we look, this video is at 0, 0. The one next to it is at 1920 and 0. And the two in the middle here are 0 and 1080, 1920 and 1080. And then these bottom two are 0, 2160 and 1920 by 2160. So these are 6 separate 1080p videos that will essentially all play at the same time. So depending on your computer specs, this will probably play back very, very slowly. One thing you can do to speed it up is to create a proxy. So if you select all of your video files like so, and you right click, you can create a proxy. It's going to use the media encoder to create low resolution versions of this video, and then when I choose this toggle proxies, it will then play back using the low resolution versions. So here I'll show you, I've got my toggle proxies set, and when I hit play, it should do a pretty good job of playing this back. So it's playing back 6 videos simultaneously. Okay, so let me show you what happens if I don't have my proxy turned on. So right now it's turned off, and you might see it struggle here a little bit. Yeah, you see it's starting to get choppy here, and it's pretty much unusable at this point. And then it's kind of at a standstill. So once I switch it on again, let's give it a second and see if it kicks on. There you go. Alright, so the next step is to export this. So click your timeline window and then just export media, and then what I'm going to do is I've left it all on the defaults, and then you can change the name of your file here You click that and then just leave everything defaulted here. Okay, it's an H.264, and then you just hit export. Once it's done exporting, then you will use this as an NDI source for this project. And if you don't know how to set up an NDI source, then you should probably look at my previous video, which will show you exactly how to set up the NDI source on your network. Okay, I've already rendered this out, so we can just go ahead and jump on over to Unreal. But I wanted to show you first of all what it looks like as an NDI source coming from the network. So this is playing on a computer that's on my network, and the computer name is Ninja Omen, and it's called OBS NDI output, and you can see that it's running at 3840 by 3240 at 60 frames per second. Okay, and it's doing a pretty good job considering how big this video is, and there's essentially 6 videos playing at the same time, so it's a little choppy, but it's not too bad. We'll want to make note of this name because we're going to be using this in our project as the name of the NDI source, so just keep that in mind. Okay, I've got the Epic Games launcher here, and I'm going to launch Unreal Engine 4.24.3. Alright, now I'm going to click on Games and Next. I'm going to leave it on blank and then choose Next. Leave these defaults, and then I'm going to name my project NDI UV map and click Create. Let's go ahead and save this file before we do anything else. Let's go to File, Save Current As. I'm going to call it NDI UV map. Hit Save. Alright, now we need to enable the NDI plugin. So if you've installed it, you'll get this notification down here that says Manage Plugins or Dismiss. Another way you could do it is to come to the top and go to Plugins, and you see here it says Enabled. So I'm going to click that and hit Yes. Then it's going to have a warning here that says for you to restart. So I'm going to hit Restart. Alright, so I'm just going to close this window. You'll notice that the name of our project is now untitled after it had restarted. So we want to make sure that we are editing our map. So go ahead and double click this. So now you'll see it says NDI UV map. So now we can continue on, And what we're going to do is create our video texture and also the material that will map onto our basic plane. So right click here in the content browser and then go to materials and textures and find NDI media texture 2D. I will rename this to NDI video. Right click again, go to media, and then choose NDI media receiver. And I'll name this to NDI media receiver. Now if we double click on this NDI media receiver, we'll see that the video texture has nothing assigned to it currently. So we'll want to assign this NDI underscore video to it, and to do that we simply drop down this box and choose NDI video and then close this. Next we want to create our plane, so I'm going to come over to basic and then find plane, drag this onto the stage here, and then I'm going to rotate it this way by 90 degrees, and then this way by 90 degrees. Okay, and then I'm just going to move it up a little bit and then bring it towards me a little. Alright, now let's create a blueprint for this plane. What we'll do is we'll give this a name. I'm going to name it NDI Actor 1, and then I'm going to click on this blueprint button here, and then I'm going to leave it as the default name. Okay, you'll notice that down here it also created the NDI Actor 1 blueprint here, and it also shows up here as a hyperlink. So in order to open this blueprint, you can either click here on the hyperlink or you can double click on this object here in the content browser. Okay, now that we have the blueprint open, what we want to do before we do anything else is to add a component. So we're going to add the NDI component in here, and the one that we want is the NDI receiver component. What this component is going to allow us to do is when we build our blueprint, it's going to give us access to a particular function called the start receiver. So if you don't add this, you won't be able to find it. Okay, so this is important. Now if we click over to event graph, we'll see our blueprint here, and if I right click, I can pan this around, right click and drag. Now the one that we're going to use right now is the event begin play, so I'm going to grab this and drag it over here. Now let's start building this out. I'm going to click on this little arrow here, click and drag it out, and when I let go, it's going to have this search bar, so I'm going to search for the first node, which is called find network source by name, and you'll see it found it here. Okay, now I'm going to create another node here called a branch. Alright, and then finally I'm going to create a node called the start receiver, and here it shows up because we've added this component. If you don't add this component, then you won't be able to find this function. Okay, so I'm going to add that, and now we're going to make a couple of connections. First is the return value, and we'll stick that into the condition, and then this connection information, we'll drag that over here to in connection information. And the last thing we need to do is to get our source name, and that can be found here. So if I click this drop down in my NDI Studio Monitor, the name of the computer is Ninja Omen, and then it's OBS NDI output. So I'll type that name here. Ninja Omen OBS NDI output, and it's case sensitive, I believe, so make sure you type it exactly. Hit enter, and then one more thing we need to check to make sure that we have an NDI media source assigned. Right now it's set to none, so we need to click this drop down arrow here and then choose our NDI media receiver that we created earlier, which is sitting here. So I'm gonna go ahead and click this, and then we need to double check that we compile before we close this window, so that everything that we set in here will update. Okay, so I'm going to click this, and then look down here in the log window here to make sure that there are no errors, and looks like we're good. So then we'll just close this. Now you'll notice that there is a warning up here that says lighting needs to be rebuilt. In order to get rid of this, what we need to do is click on our light source and then set it to movable to make it dynamic. Alright, now if everything goes well, I'm going to hit play, and hopefully we'll see our video appear here. So let's hit play. Okay, you notice that the camera jumped when I hit play. I'm going to fix that really quick and hit stop. Okay, and the way I fix that is there's a little drop down arrow here next to the play button, and you'll see it says current camera location. So I'm going to choose that, and basically what that does is anywhere my camera happens to be pointing, when I hit play, the camera will continue to stay in that position and not jump to a default position. So let's try hit play again. So since I'm already here, I can then use my keyboard to navigate the stage area here, and it looks like we don't have any video coming in, so let's troubleshoot this to see if we can find out why there's no video. I'll hit escape to stop. The reason why there's nothing here is because we haven't mapped anything to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this NDI video and we're going to drag it on top of this plane to map it. Another way we can do this is to just right click and then do create material. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop this. You can do it whichever way you want. Okay, as soon as I did that, you see that it had created this NDI underscore video material. Okay, so now let's try to play it again and see if we get a video to play. So it's obviously playing here. Let's just go ahead and I'm going to jump over to my other computer and reset the stream and see if that helps fix it. Okay, so I just restarted the stream from my other computer on the network, and then now when I hit play, you can see that the video is now coming through. Okay, so the idea here is to create 3 panels, and you can do however many panels you want. I'm just going to do 3, and I want to choose a different video here to play inside the 3 different panels that I'll have up. So the idea is that we're going to use one video texture, but then be able to use or reuse this texture across 3 different meshes. So you can use this idea for populating an LED panel or an LED wall or whatever other ideas that you might have. Okay, I'm going to stop this. So what we need to be able to do is take this plane here and then make it to where it is approximately the same aspect ratio as one of these videos. So we are talking about a 16:9 ratio, so sort of a rectangular shape. And so I'm just going to rescale this in this direction. Okay, now you notice that everything looks a little bit stretched now, and all of the videos are still displayed here. So what we need to do is we need to write a blueprint that will allow us to manipulate this texture so that it will fit exactly within the confines of this particular plane. Okay, so that's the idea. Is I'm going to take this first video here and be able to stretch this texture so that it fits exactly around this frame. As I was researching about how to do this, I came across a video created by Game Dev Man, and in his video he shows how to set up a blueprint for a single texture. It's not specifically an NDI video texture, but it just shows how to do it for a regular texture. And so I used his blueprint to then apply that concept to what I'm trying to do. So if you want to head over to Game Dev Man to check out some of his cool videos, I highly recommend it. Alright, so let's create a blueprint for this material, and how we do that is we double click the material and we'll get this sort of blueprint here, and what we're going to start to do is we're going to build out some parameter controls so that we can easily resize these textures and tile them in such a way that then we can stretch it to fit this plane. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a parameter. If we hold down the number 1 key on your keyboard and then click, you'll get this node with the number 0 on it. And what we want to do is right click and then convert it to a parameter. Okay, and when we do that, it's going to ask us for a name. So we're going to name this first one utile. Okay, and let's create another one. Hold down 1 on your keyboard and then click, right click, convert to parameter, and then we're going to call this one vtile. Okay, and we're going to connect both of these to an append. Okay, so this one connects to A and this one connects to B. Alright, and then we're going to create an add. So we'll take the append and connect it to A. Now we'll also connect the add to our UV for a texture. Alright, now we're going to create a texture coordinate. So if we right click and type in texture coordinate, you see it here. And then we're going to create a UDivide parameter. So hold down 1 and click, and then convert this to a parameter. Type in UDivide. So it's going to do a little bit of math here, but don't worry, it's not that complicated. We'll also create a divide. Okay, so you'll have an A and a B, and we're going to take the texture coordinate here and connect it to A, and take the UDivide and connect it to B. Okay, and then we're going to take the divide here and we're going to connect it to the B on add. Alright, so now we got this nice little structure here. So if I click on this texture sample, you'll see that our texture is shown up here. And we're not going to mess with any of this stuff. I'm going to click apply. You see that everything just kind of went blank here, and that's because we need to change some of the parameters. Okay, so go ahead and close this for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create an instance of this material so that we can have access to the parameters that we created. Okay, so I'm going to right click and create material instance, and then I'm just going to leave it as its defaulted name, and then double click on this. Okay, so now you see here are the parameters that we created in our materials blueprint. So we have a UDivide, UTile, and a VTile. So if I enable these, then it'll allow me to then start playing with these numbers. So I'm going to start with something like an 8 here. Okay, so immediately you see something showed up here. Okay, and if we want to see this in real time, all we have to do is hit play here. Okay, nothing's showing up because what we need to do is we have to first of all take this texture, this instance, and then assign it to this plane. So if we click and drag this, oh, we actually have to stop first. Okay, so now you see that it's updated here. I'm going to hit play. Okay, now we're super zoomed in, and that's not really what we want. So I'm going to double click this. Now I'm going to be able to manipulate these numbers. I'm just going to play around, and let's do 4. Okay, so 4 is starting to zoom it out a little bit. Let's try 2. Okay. So a 2 is a little too zoomed out. Let's see what happens if we use the U tile and the V tile. Okay, so this U tile starts to move things left and right. So I'm probably going to want to keep this probably at 0. And then let's see what this one does. This one moves it up and down, I'm assuming. Yep. Okay, so let's leave this also at 0. So let's play with this one again. Okay, so at 1 you see everything. Now let's see if we just incrementally do this. Okay, so it looks like if we do 2, it's perfectly stretched to this point here. So all we need to do now is to make sure that it's properly stretched vertically so that this bottom edge here gets pushed down to here. Okay, let's check out the original material and let's see if we can kind of stretch this down a little bit by setting a default value in here. I'm going to choose this texture coordinate here and adjust this V tiling. So let's see if I do like 0.7. So you see it's stretched it vertically a little bit, and so I'm just going to keep going and see if I can get it as close to this. There's probably a better way of doing this, but this is the best way that I could figure out how to do it. So if you have a better solution, please share that. Let's do a 0.6. Apply. I may have stretched it too far. Let's try 6.5. Okay, it's not bad. I'm not going to spend too much time getting it perfect. Like I said, if you have a better way of doing this to where it's more precise, please share that. I didn't really have time to dig into that, so this is the quickest way I could think to do it, by manipulating the original material and clicking on the texture coordinate and then just changing this V tiling. So there's probably some way to have this available on the instance, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. Okay, so we have our first texture here mapped from our video source. So it's taking this particular video here that's on the upper left corner, and if we hit play, so we see it's not too bad, and this is a 1080p video, so it should look pretty good even if we zoom in close to it. You start to see some compression artifacts there, but that's to be expected since we're zooming in so close to this. But from a distance it looks perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple more of these just to give you an idea of what it's doing and how it works. Okay, so I'm going to create another plane, and I'm going to make it the same dimensions as this. Okay, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees this way and rotate it 90 degrees this way. Okay, and if we look at the details on this, we have a scale of 1.5, 1 and 1. Okay, so let's do scale of 1.5. Let's look at the location, negative 260, negative 310, and 250. Do negative 310, negative 260. And 250. So it's perfectly overlapping, and then I'm just going to move it over. That's probably an easier way to do this, but I can't think right now. It's kind of late. Then I'm just going to duplicate this, copy and paste. Okay, and I'm going to call this NDI Actor 2, and then this one NDI Actor 3. Okay, I'm going to move it over. So we got 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I'm going to select them all and just kind of move them this way and forward a little bit. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to create an instance of the original material. Okay, and it's going to name it instance 1, which is fine. And then I'm going to drag it onto this one here. Okay. I'll do is turn these on and change this to a 2. Okay, so immediately we see that it's matching up with this one, and now all we have to do is just move this to either side. So you see we have the ability to now change the position of this. So I'm going to move this as close as I can to here. So this looks like it's about 0.5. Okay, so we got these donuts over here, we got some candy over here, and we'll do the same for this texture. So I'm gonna create another instance of this one, and it's gonna be instance 2, and drag it on, double click, enable these, and then 2. Now I'm gonna move this down, and we'll see more candy here. So let's say this is probably something like a 0.6, 0.66, 0.67. Looks good enough. Okay, close this. And now when I hit play, there you go. You have 3 textures here, but they're all using the same video texture. So essentially we've just basically divided out this video texture and then had them appear on 3 different meshes. That's what I wanted to show you, and hopefully this answers the question of, can you take a video texture and use it kind of like a UV map? And the answer is yes, you can. Whether this is the most efficient way to do it or not, I don't really know, but it works. Now in your case, depending on the amount of bandwidth you have and your computer specs, you may want to make these videos a little bit smaller. You can probably do other things like you can add graphics, or you can add other things onto this quote-unquote video texture. You can probably have static images too if you wanted to. I don't know why you would do that, but the possibilities are there for you to explore. So get creative and see what kinds of things you can come up with using this technique. Surely there are uses for it, and if you're trying to use this to solve the LED panel or LED wall, this could very well solve that problem for you. So that's it. Let me know if this video was helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.